I think this is a very different situation. The Pentagon hasn't said everything, but it seems like there were small sort of incursions where these other balloons in the past kind of went into U.S. Airspace, but then left very quickly. This is completely different to have this balloon float across, close to the entire continental United States. So it's that said, I don't see this as this huge, breach of national security. From what I've read, these balloons sort of see the same amount as a Chinese satellite sees. But the real challenge here is for President Biden, I think, politically.
Well, absolutely. And we're going to talk about that. Clint, right now, there's a debris recovery process happening. Talk us through that recovery process. What can intel agents hope to learn from that debris, do you think?
Well, I think it confirms probably a lot of their suspicions in terms of what they think they already know. Remember, this balloon, they all knew about it almost a week ago now at this point, and it has been under intense scrutiny. Obviously, they got incredible visuals of it. You and I are watching it right now on the screen. So they've been able to see what this balloon is and at least get some understanding of the payload. Second, I think the other part is they really want to know everything the balloon was trying to detect. Naturally, we always go to visual imagery. Just like David said, things like satellites, though, cover most of the ground very, very well. But the question really will come down to, are there other sensors, other types of payloads that might be loaded in the balloon, which we would call measurement and signatures intelligent, or MASINT, is an entire field where maybe they're trying to use some sort of sensing technology that we're not familiar with. And getting that technology and understanding it could be a real game changer in terms of intelligence value down the road when we see other balloons that are out there, just like the one we've been talking about over Latin America. Gives us an understanding maybe what the Chinese are trying to do with this mechanism and why they are trying to do it instead of just relying on satellites like David was talking about.
David, maybe not surprisingly, the Republicans are very mad at President Biden, even talking about condemning him on the House floor. Is this just another example of the partisanship, hyper-partisanship that we deal with today, or is it somehow warranted?
I think in the short term, it's hyper-partisanship. There was a decision apparently by Pentagon officials to not shoot this down because the lower part of it, the machinery that Clint was just talking about, is roughly the size of 3 buses. And there was a concern that you could, have this debris hit people on the ground. But I don't think President Biden can sort of be passive here because there's a larger question. How did this happen? Why is China doing this? There's speculation that maybe this was some sort of mistake by the Chinese. It's very strange to send this balloon in when Secretary of State Blinken is supposed to go there for a visit. So Biden needs to sort of assert himself in terms of our relationship with China in the long term. He's got to rebuke the Chinese for this incident and stand up to them. So again, Republican exaggeration, but if I think Biden is sort of sits back too much, he'll open up a political opportunity for them.
And Clint, talk to us about the danger of politicizing national security at this moment.
Yeah, it's rather unfortunate because we just don't know a whole lot about what the military's thinking is. And I think any commander in chief is going to take that recommendation. What David was talking about, an item at 3 sizes, 3 bus loads in size. I mean, just think about that. That is massive destructive power when it's hitting the ground. Separately, we also don't know what kind of intelligence they might have been trying to collect while it was airborne. There is some reporting that suggests that maybe it was still under command and control of the Chinese. Leaving it in the air would give you maybe a better understanding of that. So it's unfortunate immediately it turned into a for or against President Biden when, in fact, there may be many good reasons. 1, safety. 2, in terms of recovery, having it out over the ocean might make it easier to do that to some degree. And then the last part is we don't know. We have no idea what the military was doing in terms of intelligence collection all the way over that period from about Tuesday to yesterday. So I wish we could just wait for some of the facts to unfold. And at least from my perspective, it seems like they handled it in a very disciplined way. And we're one of the only countries in the world. Reminder, there's another one out there right now. We're one of the only countries in the world that can handle this at all and can do such things. So we have the tools and capabilities. I bet there was a very deliberate decision-making process that went down, and it made a lot of sense for those that were trying to make sure that people were safe and intel collection could be preserved as well.